Hi, I'm Brian Whitens, filling in for Buck Lavasser. Welcome to this special edition of Discovering. We all want freedom and time, but what are we willing to give up to trade for that freedom and time? Join me as we spend some time off the grid in the Hiawatha National Forest with Fred Powers. This show is about how he has chosen to live his life, and maybe persuades us to take a closer look at how we choose to live ours. In the middle of the Upper Peninsula's beautiful Hiawatha National Forest, you'll find a small cabin that belongs to Fred Powers. Fred is the owner and operator of Wilderness Trail Outfitters and specializes in wilderness dog sled adventures through the miles of scenic trails that the Hiawatha has to offer.
When I was a kid, I would take a fishing pole, a 22, and a tarp, and a sleeping bag. And I would just go off to these different swamp-type lakes, and I would either eat what I shot or eat what I fished, but I never took no food with me. And just over the years, I guess I predominantly spent any of my spare time in a forest somewhere.
Last night as I lay sleeping, the snowdrifts drifting, the cold wind blowing, I dreamed a mighty river carried me away.
When I was 50, my mom decided it was time to say to me, you remember that you never chose this lifestyle. The lifestyle chose you. And I think that she's probably right, because nobody in their right mind would want to live without electricity or without all this stuff.
Far away across the frozen tundra,
I really do believe my mom. I really do believe her when she said the lifestyle chose you, because I can't explain how miserable I would end up after a year of being stuck in the economy of one form or fashion. And if anything, 2 years, and I was done. I was leaving. It was like, man, I just can't take this.
yes, north I must, to find that silver lining.
Everybody thinks living off the grid is pretty cool until they see the outhouse.
Somewhere along the journey of your life, you meet someone who really gets your attention. Someone who grabs a hold of some stashed away part of you and drags it out to the surface. And unconsciously forces you to take a better look at life. A better look at who you are and who you want to be. It's usually not some guy on TV in a 4-piece suit with a master's degree in communication. It's just some guy. Somebody that somewhere along the way realized what life should be all about.
Hey, Clyde! What are you doing, Clyde?
Some guy that stepped to the side of the road and said, wow, this is much better. Either way, it's somebody who had the resolution to live the way they want to live.
Yes, north I must, though I...
What does it mean to live off the grid? To some it means solar panels, windmills, and backup generators. To others it means something more, considerably more. To some, it's not just about not having an electric bill or a heating bill. It's not about survival or doing without the conveniences offered by the modern world, or living green or the size of your footprint. It is about that, but not just that. It's about living life in a way that suits you, not everyone else. It's about self-reliance, and what happens today is up to you, based on the choices you make. It's about where you live and how you live there.
You know, I did have a radio, and that shorted out. I just hate anything to do with modernism, because you got to replace it and you got to spend money. And I would rather not make the money at all and not have it, and spend an extra day fishing or driving dogs or sitting down with the dogs, just to be with them, just to intermingle with them. These guys, you can see, really sweet dogs. Gosh, you just gotta love them.
all that I ever had, or so I'm told.
Oh, there's just no doubt about it. I've never had, everyone that has worked for me has said, I just can't believe that it's, you have fun at your job. Yeah, you know, you do meet some interesting people. Gosh, like I said, I got power 1,200 feet from the US 2 place, and I don't want it, because I don't want the bill. I just don't. Being totally billless is, I think, the key to staying here. You know, places, everything's paid for, so it's just a matter of paying the government their taxes. The only thing that I need power for, though, is for about 60 gallons of water a day. 60 to 100 gallons of water a day for the dogs. You know, I do have the phone bill because of the business, and that's the only reason I didn't have a phone until I started the business. And, you know, but I was a news junkie, and I didn't realize that until the government took away analog. Okay, because there is a little TV with a screen about like this, you know. You got to run up to it if you really wanted to look to it. And you had to have a magnifying glass if there was any printing on the screen for words. But I could catch the weather, you know, and it didn't take very much power out of the battery bank. And gosh, when they took that away, that took a couple of months to get used to not being able to get the 6 o'clock, 5:30 buzz, news buzz, you know, 5:30 to 7. But now it's been, what, 2 or 3 years since they did that? And no, actually I end up spending that extra time with the dogs, so it even makes the dogs even a little bit better, you know. Stack. Come on, Jammer. Jammer, come here. Come on. That's a good boy. Come here. That's a very good boy, Jammer. It must have been 25 years ago when I thought, you know, never before has anybody been able to push a button, turn a knob. Now you don't even have to do that to distract your mind from thinking. And now it's, how do they turn a radio on now? They don't use a knob, right? It's a button that you push. God, I just can't even imagine. People get used to noise, which I'm really, you know, I'm used to the quiet. If I turn the radio, if I were to turn the radio on, it ain't on for very long, and I start, well, I want to hear what's going on around me. Because even when I talk to my mom on the phone, I go, oh, you're smoking again, huh? She goes, how do you know that? And I go, well, I heard you just lit a cigarette. She goes, how do you know that? And I said, well, didn't you just click the lighter? And I go, wasn't that a lighter? Yeah. And I go, well, that's just kind of putting word to the sound that I just heard, and you're smoking again, ain't you? Yes, I am. You're 82 years old, Ma. Puff away. If it doesn't hurt you in 70 years of smoking, I don't think a few more is going to do anything. Yeah, but you even hear the earth grumbling. You know, like I was saying, like you said, did you hear about that earthquake? Well, probably felt it, or literally. I mean, you get so used to the quietness that you do hear. There's always a grumble with that shaking. And, yep, no doubt that it's quiet. And it's nice. It's the quietest I ever heard it was after 9/11. And I think they just must have changed their air flight patterns. After 9/11, I mean, it's been all these years, and they must have changed the flights so that we didn't have any planes flying overhead anymore. And just this year I started hearing planes again, so they must have changed some flight patterns or something, I don't know. I don't do a whole lot of hunting. I'd probably be called a meat hunter because I just hunt for the meat. But the fishing, yeah, there's some good fishing here. It's maybe not excellent, but I sure have hooked into some of the biggest inland lake fish that I've ever hooked into. It's all been here in the forest. Yeah, you know, you're never totally free from modern living. You still got to have gasoline for a car, and you still got to have gasoline for a plow truck. I got 1.5 miles of road that I got to plow, so I think for the money that I make, it either goes to the dogs or to the driveway. That's about it, too. I think the greatest thing about not being connected to a grid system, especially when I have a girlfriend, is you can throw all the catalogs away. Because they don't want nothing that doesn't run if it doesn't have electricity. It did save me an awful lot of money over the years. Gave me more time for the dogs. Oh, gosh.
Well, this wasn't our first encounter with dog sledding. A year ago, Patty and I spent a day enjoying the wilderness of Ontario behind a team of trusty huskies, and enjoyed every minute of it. Even before then, I think back to the first time I actually saw someone on a dog sled. I was cross-country skiing in the woods of the Upper Peninsula when around the bend came a pack of dogs, a sled, and my cousin Rick barking out commands to his trusty team. As I watched the dogs and then the sled pass by my lens, I knew I would someday need to feel the runners beneath my boots and experience the freedom and peacefulness that dog sledding offers. And maybe get even a little taste of the heritage and tradition of something that began in the far northern reaches of the continent some 4,000 years ago. Well, as I mentioned, this was not our first time behind a team of dogs, but this time it would be a bit different. This 28-mile journey would take us through, relatively speaking, my own backyard. We were in Upper Michigan's Hiawatha National Forest, only a couple of hours from where we live.
Well, the Hiawatha forest is about 1,600 square miles of semi-wilderness to wilderness. It's probably the most underutilized national forest in the state, let alone probably in the Midwest. Everybody comes up from Wisconsin, they stay over at in the Ottawa forest area, Ontonagon. People come up from lower Michigan, stay over on the east unit of the Hiawatha. And nobody really wants, it seems, to spend that extra hour to 2 hours of driving to come to the Hiawatha. So it is amazing that you can cover so much ground in a day and never see nobody. Beautiful forest. There's nothing, I don't think that there's anything spectacular here, but it's got awesome, beautiful trails. Lake Superior at the north end, Lake Michigan at the south end, with over 200 lakes in the 1,600 square miles of the forest. So you got plenty of places to go to fish, to just hike around. Forest Service, I don't know how many trails that they have through the Hiawatha. There's an awful lot of walk trails. Then we've got from whitetails to moose to mountain lions to bobcat to probably every major predator is here. You don't see them very often, but you definitely see their tracks. And if this forest isn't big enough, then you got this Lake Superior State Forest, which hosts a whole lot of lakes up northeast of Wetmore, Munising area. And spend a lot of time just exploring the Hiawatha.
It's like snowshoeing without having to walk, like cross-country skiing without the uphill, like snowmobiling without the noise. For the most part, you're standing on a set of runners and letting your team of trusty dogs do the rest. Quietly, peacefully, almost silently cruising through the woods on a trail that you have all to yourself, just you and your team. Then halfway through the journey, you stop, gather up some wood, build a fire, and have lunch.
I think I was 20, and I moved to the Cascade Mountains, and I was in the Bitterroot Mountains for a little bit, and went over to the Olympic Mountains in Washington, and eventually ended up back in Michigan, because you sure miss the four seasons if you're raised with it.
No, Carson.
I was hunting and trapping for a living. Managed the Nebashone Ranch for 3 years. Pure Marquette Rod and Gun Club, and I managed that for 3 years.
You know, like when you were a kid and you always thought...
I went from that, and I was a fish farmer, and in between all these and that, I would always end up back in the forest again. Whatever that is. Yeah, 39. I moved to the Hiawatha National Forest. It was a choice, and it was a choice to live this kind of lifestyle off the grid. More living off the land, although the dogs make my living. But back then, snowmobiles weren't the thing. After being broke down one time, and having blisters on the bottom of my feet that were just raw red, the dogs looked more and more interesting. And I was driving a wrecker for a buddy of mine one winter, and I went to a guy's house to grab his car, and he had 100 Alaskan Huskies, and I thought, that's it. It was just that simple. That's it. And when I left with his car and 4 puppies, which was the introduction to the Alaskan Husky. I fell in love with just how these guys think. The social aspect of the living is why we can sit out here in the middle of a wilderness area and have 9 male dogs loose. And no wars going on. What made me fall in love with dog sledding was the dogs. These big, beautiful dogs, hey? Hey, Axel. It's the dog sledding, the forest. I'm in love with the forest. These dogs just kind of go along with it. The forest changes every day. You'd think that you'd almost get tired of being on a set of runners. We don't take the same trails all the time, but when you're the guide, you're seeing the trails all the time. And but the forest changes every day. Just like when we stopped before and we seen that a coyote caught a rabbit, and in the process of eating it, or he left something there that a raven found and grabbed it and flew over by the trail. It's always changing.
To mush, or at least to do what Fred does, one must possess 2 basic loves, dogs and the outdoors. I think Fred's love for the outdoors is surpassed only by his love for the dogs.
Last night as I lay sleeping, the snowdrifts drifting, the cold wind blowing, I dreamed a mighty river carried me away.
Dogs are not just tools or equipment for the business. Wilderness Trail Outfitters is a partnership between Fred and his family of dogs. and they are as friendly as any pet I've ever had.
The frozen tundra.
I would suggest to anybody who enjoys the outdoors to stop in and visit Fred and the dogs and spend your own day on a sled.
It left my soul on the shore of a northern sea.
This sort of off-the-grid lifestyle really does make you stop and think about how you live your life and how simple it really should be, or could be, and maybe how little we need the things we say we can't live without. What have I been missing? Why do I never seem to have the time to do all the things that I enjoy doing so much? What on earth is so important that I don't take the time to stop and check out the scenery or smell the air? After all, it's the simple things that dish out the most pleasure. A quiet day on a stream, the warm breeze of a fall day while sitting in a tree stand, listening to the snowfall. These simple pleasures all have one thing in common. They're free. It doesn't matter if you're wealthy or poor. The simple things are always there, waiting for us to enjoy.
Though I have left behind me all that I ever had, or so I'm told.
Living off the grid doesn't necessarily mean you have to live without electricity or eat nothing but venison and fish all year. I think it's more about what you have than what you don't have. For everything you don't have, there is something else there to take its place. Mostly, time. It's really about trading money for time. Less work means less money, but more time. You spend your money on bills, you spend your time on the things you enjoy. We all want freedom and time, but how much are we willing to give up, to trade for that freedom and time? I think maybe we could all use a little time off the grid.
It just makes for a really nice life. Nice and easy. And you know, how could you not fall in love with the lifestyle? Hey, boys. Ha ha ha.